Hi everyone, my name is Chrissy Tickle.
I'm Zach Vestal.
I'm Jessica Twitchell.
And I'm Leslie Upchurch. So for our gender breaching project, we decided to challenge the norms of only females wearing nail polish. In order to do this, we went to a freshman dorm where Jessica is an RA. And in this, we hypothesized that although it's a college campus, we thought that people would be more accepting to the idea of transgender or different norms that are originally for women. But we also hypothesized that since it is a freshman dorm, that there would be some people who would show different reactions.
So when it came to the reactions, we decided to get reactions from as many people as we possibly could. So we got reactions from RAs who work in the building and who are a little bit more mature. We got reactions from the freshmen who maybe have never seen this before in their lives or maybe are really used to it. And I also, as the person who decided to do the thing that's not maybe a gender norm, when I painted my fingernails, I actually also sent it to my parents, friends, and different types of family just to see what they might say about the experiment. So we got a lot of different people's reactions, and now we're here to talk about those different reactions.
And in his experiment, he basically catcalled people in the cone lobby to bring attention to the fact that he was painting his nails or that Chrissy was painting his nails, and asking people what color to do or what color would match his skin tone the best. So I think it was really interesting to see the reactions of the residents and the RA staff with what Zach was doing.
Another reaction that I was really surprised by, well, I'll say I was surprised, but sadly I knew a little bit of what the reaction would be as well. A lot of times it was young men that I would ask because the resident advisors seemed to be mostly female, and they were pretty accepting of everything that was going on. But for the guys, which I understood the most, I would probably think, the reactions were mostly either uncomfortable or negative, which could be a little bit of both ways, because I feel like a lot of guys were uncomfortable when they saw it or when I approached them asking them about nail polish in general. And that's probably because they know that in our society, nail polish is not a norm for men, and normally men don't have anything to do with it. So I understood going into the project that once I asked them questions like, do you like my nails, or how do you feel about my nails, I had a good idea of basically what they would be saying or what their reactions would be. That's mostly, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Or just as much as a passive, yeah, I like it, but just continuing to keep it moving. This was normal for me. I know for most people, or for some people, it might have been difficult for them to do the experiment because maybe they weren't comfortable with it or they weren't comfortable with the reactions that they would get. But I can say that, coming to UNCG and learning more about a lot of different people, I basically learned what is appropriate and what's not. And one thing that's not appropriate is telling anyone what they should or shouldn't do with their body. So I was a little discouraged by some of the male counterparts. I actually ran into a group of two guys who told me how wrong I was for the fingernail polish that I wore. But then I reminded them of a musical artist that I was pretty sure that they took part in as much as myself, who actually is a part of the androgynous culture, I believe we would say, where this artist actually paints his nails and he does dress in some gender ambiguous type clothing where you might not know if what his identity is or what he's trying to come off as. When I brought this up, the one male that was actually, having the hardest time grasping that I could be doing this as a heterosexual male, he was really stumped. And I would say that his friend was also really stumped and really surprised that I was able to pull that out, because I don't think that a lot of them probably expected, after seeing what I was wearing, that we would have the same common views for music or things like just hanging out in general. So I definitely surprised them, and I can even say that for reaction-wise, I saw a few of the young men that we saw at the bottom of Cone later that week, even later that night, and I might have been doing normal things like, hanging out with friends or being in the gym. I saw a bunch of them at the gym, and most of them actually came up to me and asked me, what that was about, that being the experiment. And for a few of them that were really, curious of what was going on, I let them know what we did. I let them know about the class, and I let them know more about what we learned. But for a few of them, it was just very clear that they weren't really as open-minded as they needed to be just to be able to have this conversation. So for them, I sort of just let them go, let them have a little bit more time to mature before you have that conversation with them about, well, this is a class where we want to learn about the different, ways that people identify. But for the most part, the reactions were negative based on comfort level. And I think a few people were able to really get past it, and a few people weren't. But I would say as a group, we were pretty much not surprised by the fact that the males mostly were not very supportive of my decision. And really quickly, I would just say for my family was very supportive. I'm proud to say that that's probably one of the reasons why I'm such an open-minded person. My mother only had an issue with the color. My sister was supportive. My girlfriend, who, when I said I had a girlfriend to some of the males, it automatically broke a barrier down for them. She was in full support, and I hadn't told any of my friends about the experiment beforehand. So I think we learned that it was a lot about comfort and not as much about what was really right or wrong. But, that's the male opinion, I know.
And like what you said for the guys, I think it had a lot to do mostly with comfort. And even though they were a little hesitant to come forward, they still came forward, and they still, once they kind of saw what you were doing, they answered some of the questions, and they even had some input on the color, but they were like, this isn't really my thing. I don't really know what to tell you on this. And I think they were just trying to say, like, I don't know what color to choose from because I don't know what you're doing right now. But when it came to the girls, I think all of us had an assumption going in that they were going to be a little bit more accepting. They were going to be more cool with it in general, and that's basically what we found. There were some girls who were hesitant at first just because I think they weren't expecting us to, call them over and start engaging them in conversation. But once they got past that initial hesitancy, they were really supportive about it. And there were still some girls who were a little awkward with it, but in general, most of the girls were helping pick out colors. They were trying to see, like, well, what's the event that you're going for, because we got to plan this, what kind of outfit are you wearing. They were really into, like, coordinating the colors that they had and trying to make sure he was going to look his best for whatever kind of event he was going to. And they really, really got into it, which is something that we definitely, as a group, probably knew would happen. There were a couple things that I think surprised us a little bit, just because, if a girl walked in with a guy and if the guy was uncomfortable, they wouldn't really be as engaging as they would be otherwise if they came in by themselves. And also what I noticed is that we did have a lot of African American females come in. That was basically what we kind of found in the population that we looked at. And I think that had a little bit to do with it because, Zach is a wonderful man, and they identified with him, and they were into a little bit more. But, what we didn't really have a representation of white males. We didn't have a representation of, any kind of other culture really come in there. And it would be interesting to know what would happen if, there was a white guy doing this, or if there was another race doing it, if the reaction would be the same. And I know there were other specific reactions that other people had that I'm sure you guys want to touch on.
So as an RA and coming from the RA standpoint, I know what going through or what RA training is like to go through, and I know what diversity training that we do receive. And so one of the things that we always do every training is something along the lines of acceptance. Learn their story, accept them for exactly who they are. Don't try to change them. Don't try to push yourself onto a resident in the sense of your worldviews onto them. And so I think it was really interesting to see other RAs fully accept Zach with his nail polish. And it wasn't just a, let's put on this front, this is what I was trained to do. It was a true, I understand that this is part of your identity, and I'm going to accept you for that and make sure that everyone else does too. And I thought that was really interesting to see. But I also thought it was interesting that all of the RAs who came and talked to you later talked to me and was like, what was going on? Why was he painting his nails? I've never seen him with nail polish on before. So what were y'all doing? So they knew something was up. So I think that was interesting in and of itself as well. And I think it also, to add on to the reaction of the girls, I think the sorority women on the hall were very accepting of you. I don't know if they just thought you were cute or what, but they seem to be very open with your bright colored nails.
Okay, and going off a little bit on a few of the things that they all mentioned, starting with the guy when you mentioned the artist
Right.
that also paints his nails.
Right.
I feel like it really shocked them because in the media, a lot of times we are directed at what females do and how females are viewed in the media, but when a male kind of breaks the gender norms, I don't feel that it's really put on the spotlight, so to say, as it is for females. And I think that kind of with progression and with development of different cultures, because it's always changing, that maybe that will be something that's seen a little bit more in society, is the gender norms not only with women but with men as well. And honestly, in my opinion, also just walking around campus, I see more men who are taking the role as a female than I do vice versa. And I think it's kind of like because they're really sheltered from this idea that they can do that at home, and then when they come to college, it allows them to grow. And with that being said, doing this experiment in a freshman dorm, I feel is one reason why we got such negative reactions, because they haven't been exposed to that environment of challenging gender norms. And then also, it kind of makes us wonder, although after he started talking to them, they seemed a little bit more accepting of it, it makes you wonder if what they said after they left, behind closed doors, if their opinions stayed the same, or if it was kind of a front just to, because we in society have different behaviors that we're told to act out, that we are supposed to treat people a certain way, and in that they could be accepting just to not try and go over boundaries and stir something up. And then also with the RAs, you said that it was sincere. Well, it kind of makes you wonder if that is their training, or if some people maybe also put up that front when they're not around their friends. And what happens if when they become around their friends, because friends are a huge impact on our views. And when they're around their friends, if they would, say something differently than if they were in their job scene where they have to be this accepting person. And so I think all those we as sociologists know and kind of take into account, but it's interesting to really look at it in the perspective of somebody who's maybe naive and doesn't really see it in the way that we do.
I think it was interesting, as an RA of the building, we have 300 students, and about 7 of the floors are first-year students. And so to see these sometimes acting out freshmen to react to you was interesting for me, because they don't always follow the rules, and they aren't always nice to each other. But for the most part, it wasn't a big deal. A lot of people said, yeah, it looks good, and kept walking. A lot of people said, totally, or just ignored him and kept walking, either because they had headphones in or what have you. But I think that the few of the men specifically who said that was gay and said that wasn't cool or that went against their idea of masculinity, I expected those residents to say something because of the interactions that I've had with them. And I think it's interesting that you can kind of tell what reaction someone is going to give you based off of how they interact with a diverse environment, not including gender identity or sexuality or choices of nail polish color, but just race or ethnicity, and even differences in power. So I thought that was interesting. Going in, I expected more, but I was happily surprised that the few that I knew were going to say something didn't surprise me.
Yeah, that actually leads to my reactions. As the person that knew that I would be doing the experiment, I knew I would be the person that was, I guess, the control in the experiment to see, the difference in reactions. I can say that my reaction to what happened might have even been better than my expectation, because I expected there to be that uncomfortableness and I expected there to be a little bit of uneasiness. But I think it's all about reaction, to be quite honest. Well, not all about, but I think after that initial point has been made, nothing can come from the conversation except for good or bad based on those reactions. So my reaction at that moment, when people would either, support me or question what I was doing, my reaction was just to stay as strong as possible and to stay as confident as possible in whatever I was doing. And I think that really goes into what was said earlier about how, a lot of times it's about what maybe like the media might put forward as to what is acceptable and what's not. But also including the media, I think it also includes how people carry themselves. Because I can say for myself personally that I know if I went into this experiment, a little bewildered and a little bit worried when I was seeing how people react, I knew we wouldn't get real reactions, because then I would just be matching their energy and matching their reaction before it even happened, because I know what they were expecting. So my reaction was mostly, me telling myself, stay confident, act like this is normal, act like this is what you want to be doing, because if you do that, then you'll get the true honest reaction from the people there. Because some people really did show that once someone makes a point and makes a point to say that this is what they want to do, a lot of people will respect it. Once again, we can all say that they were very uneasy at first, and I think anybody would be, because what I was doing was a gender breach. But I was pleased by the respect that I was able to get, and I think that had a lot to do with, one, the fact that I was with friends while I did it, as well as the fact that we were treating it like it was a normal thing. We weren't acting like it was a big spectacle. We were sitting in the corner of a lobby downstairs, and we were all acting like it was just another normal night. So my response is overall positive, because I think that, we handled it the right way, and that led to others handling it better than maybe they would have any other situation.
And like you said earlier, I think it was great that you ended up having those follow-up conversations, and even me talking to other RAs, we got to have that opportunity of growth. And even if it wasn't a big change of thought, it was an idea of, oh, there's someone who's different, and I just saw a different side of someone that I completely didn't expect. And I think that opportunity for that to happen, a space that could happen, was really cool to see.
One of the things that I really kind of took in was, because of course it's known that men value masculinity to such an extreme because of society, and I feel when they reacted to Zach in a certain way, and I know at one point he started talking, there was a game that was coming on later, and he started talking about sports with one of them, and it kind of altered how they started viewing him, because they saw, oh, well, he may not be masculine because he's painting his nails, but he's still talking about other masculine things that men are supposed to kind of act out as their norms. So that, for me, was really interesting to kind of sit back and, like, see that alteration in just a, like, second of a moment when he started talking about more masculine things.
And for me, I know going into it, I was really excited just to kind of see what people were going to say, because it's not often that you get to be put in that kind of position. You get to see, you know, somebody's real reaction. But at the same time, I was also a little wary of it, just because, you know, when you are put on the spot, sometimes you react how you think other people want you to react. So like we have said earlier, you know, what were those conversations like behind closed doors? You know, if somebody puts you on the spot or something, you kind of just want to give the politically correct answer, which is what a lot of people do. They're not going to say how they truly feel, because that's going to offend some people. And I think that was interesting, just because, you know, we don't know if we have a true reaction. We want to say that we do, but at the end of the day, we really don't know if that's how people really feel. And, you know, just because, I also think because we put them on the spot, it forced them to put themselves in that position, because they weren't expecting, you know, this guy to be in here putting on nail polish and to be really into it with all these girls. But at the same time, you know, what would their reaction be if they saw him at a party and they saw nail polish on? What would they go home and be like? Would they tell their friends, I saw this guy and, you know, he had this crazy nail polish on? You don't really know. And that kind of leads some questions to be raised and everything. And also, you know, I think it was really important that Zach did point out, you know, some masculine things to kind of prove to people, like, I'm not gay. This is not something that typically, you know, a straight guy would do. But there were times where he didn't explicitly say, you know, I'm not gay. He didn't point out that he wasn't, you know, in a relationship. And I think some of the girls, especially because, like we said, you know, girls are more often to be friends with gay men, just in general. And I think that's what maybe a lot of these girls thought was, you know, Zach was a gay man, and, you know, this is just what he did. This is what he liked to do. But, you know, I think it would be interesting to know, just kind of put people in other positions, even if we could do like a hidden camera thing, which probably would never happen. But I think that's the only way you're ever going to get like a true reaction out of somebody. So
I think for me it was interesting because I don't normally paint my nails. My nails are painted now, but I don't normally paint my nails. And we were also painting our nails with Zach. It wasn't just him and we were sitting there. We were participating.
Yeah.
But no one was surprised that we were painting our nails. And even if it's not something that I normally do, no one came up to me and was like, hey, you never paint your nails. What are you doing? It was all eyes were on Zach. And I think that shows something too. The fact that we didn't get that response shows that this isn't just something that we've noticed, it's something that is there.
And I think that kind of brings us just back to our conclusion. You know, our hypothesis was that we knew we were going to get some kind of reaction. We assumed that it was going to be mostly negative, and I think all of us are pretty pleasantly surprised when we realized that a lot of it was positive, with the exception of a few. But, I mean, that was just something that was really good to see. It kind of restores your faith in humanity a little bit. And, you know, it does bring up the questions of, what is masculinity? You know, how can we expand that definition a little bit, and how can we strive to include other kinds of, you know, traits and people and characteristics into this term, and, you know, quit making masculinity such a hard thing, such a hard, rigid kind of topic, and expand it and make it into something that can include everybody in it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.